Bienvenue dans The Language of Success, présenté par votre formatrice dévouée, Diana Bohan. The Language of Success, c'est le podcast bilingue anglais pour les professionnels francophones, qu'ils soient salariés dans un environnement international ou entrepreneurs curieux et ambitieux. Ma mission dans ce podcast ? Accompagner, inspirer et éduquer toutes celles et tous ceux qui souhaitent partager leur expertise et leurs valeurs en anglais aussi efficacement qu'ils le font en français. Avec une approche résolument humaniste et atypique, je partage avec vous mes meilleurs conseils afin que votre communication en anglais soit aussi simple que impactante. Chère auditrice, chers auditeurs, bienvenue à ce nouvel épisode de The Language of Success. Alors j'avais initialement prévu de vous faire un épisode en anglais sur le thème de slow working versus hustling, qui était une mise en opposition, une comparaison entre un certain style de travail, d'entrepreneuriat et de vision du travail qui tourne autour du travailler dur, régulièrement, trop, en mode workaholic, versus un style de vie qui va être plutôt centré autour d'une qualité de vie et un mieux-être au travail, et notamment au travail lorsqu'on est, donc encore une fois, lorsqu'on travaille de façon indépendante. Et en fait, j'ai changé d'avis, encore une fois, à réflexion, parce que je me suis dit que je voulais aborder un thème qui sera peut-être un peu plus universel, non pas que le thème du travail et de l'entrepreneuriat ne m'intéresse pas, loin de là, puisque je suis dans le sujet, mais j'avais envie de proposer autre chose qui va peut-être être un petit peu plus instantané et qui du coup va être aussi, quand je dis instantané, c'est-à-dire va vous parler davantage et c'est un format long et ça donne des conseils également. Mais ce n'est pas un format quick tip cette fois-ci, je développe un petit peu sur quelques thèmes et je partage mes avis dessus. Donc aujourd'hui, je vais vous parler du fait de comprendre l'anglais, mais ne pas réussir à le parler. Et c'est librement inspiré d'une vidéo que j'ai vue sur YouTube, sur le compte d'une personne qui s'appelle Marina, je ne sais plus comment elle s'appelle, son nom de famille, mais c'est une youtubeuse, entrepreneuse, qui est connue, on va dire connue pour pas mal de apprenants en anglais, non francophones, ça c'est sûr. Par les francophones, je ne sais pas, parce que quand je regarde les commentaires de ces vidéos, je ne vois pas beaucoup de pseudo français ou francophones, donc je ne sais pas si le public francophone la connaît, oui. Mais son compte, c'est Lingua Marina. Lingua Marina, et même si elle est devenue un petit peu... comment dire ? Il y a du contenu auquel j'adhère, il y a du contenu auquel je n'adhère pas. Mais en tout cas lorsqu'elle donne des conseils un petit peu d'ordre général, on va dire, sur comment apprendre l'anglais, je l'ai trouvée pertinente. Enfin, j'étais tombée sur 2-3 vidéos pertinentes, donc je vais partager un petit peu cela avec vous in English with my comments. So here we go. Today's topic in English is I understand English, but I can't speak it. So as I said, this is a podcast that is freely inspired from a YouTube account called Lingua Marina. So you can look her up on YouTube. You'll find her rather easily because she has a big account, like I think millions of followers. And so I don't remember anymore if I took notes, because I'm going to share with you thoughts and notes. And I don't remember anymore if I took notes from a single video or from several videos. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Look her up and maybe you'll find the video that got me inspired on this topic. So the first thing that she says, one of her ideas to counter and to remedy the fact that you may understand English, but you can't speak it, which I think is something that happens to a lot of French learners and French-speaking learners, is that because of how they learned English at school, they understand it, especially the written format. They can understand the written English, but they can't speak it. In today's episode, I'm actually going to be talking about people who understand spoken English, so who can understand when someone is speaking English to them, but they can't answer or speak in English with the person they're having a conversation with. So it's not understanding the written, English, written English, or let's say written comprehension, reading comprehension. It's understanding spoken English, but not being able to speak it yourself. So one of the topics that she develops around that, she expands on, is fear. And what she says is one of the reasons why you can't speak English, even though you understand it, is fear. And basically, you being a perfectionist makes you nervous. And nervous in the sense that you're afraid to speak because you want to sound perfect. And when I say perfect, it can either be with the grammar, the vocabulary, or even an accent, especially for those of you who would want to sound native. And when I say native, I already made a podcast on this about, pros and cons, so benefits and disadvantages of trying to sound native, of aspiring to sound native. Like when would it be relevant to try to get a native accent? So you can check that out in my list of episodes. But back to the topic. Basically, if you're too focused on not having a native accent, and whether it's British or American or Australian or whatever accent it is that you want to have, then you get nervous because you think you're not good enough. And so the idea that she expands on is that when you're relaxed, your language speaking is much better. So basically, you need to eliminate the fear, you need to eliminate the stress of being perfect so that you can relax and so that your language speaking is going to be much better. Why? Because basically, when you are afraid, your nervous system, is sort of short-circuiting your, your language abilities. You have to imagine it like outside of the language space. Imagine that, someone is threatening you and you're supposed to react. So some people, in the face of a threat, they might run or they might, react. But some people are also just going to freeze, like they're so in shock that they don't even know how to react in the face of a danger or, a threat. So the idea is that if you feel threatened by someone who is speaking English to you, and you feel threatened because you feel you're not going to be good enough to, express yourself correctly and be understood, then this is going to hamper, this is going to hinder, this is going to prevent you from speaking correctly. So basically, relax and just say what you have to say. So that's the first topic, fear. And something that you have to remove if you want to be able to speak. Again, you're in a situation where you understand what people are saying, but you can't speak. You also have to think about this, the fact that you're going to be speaking. You need to think about it and approach, English speaking as a tool. So basically, when I say a tool is that, and I think I've also already mentioned this in one of my episodes, but basically English is a tool. It's an instrument to improve your life. And, you have to think that without it, you won't be able to achieve your goals and reach new levels, whether it be, professionally speaking, like finding a job or finding new clients, or, expanding your business internationally. So you really have to, think of it as a tool that you need to work on, that you need to improve to get better opportunities. And if you don't work on that tool, if you don't work on that skill that's going to help you achieve a goal or, obtain whatever it is that you want to obtain, then you won't reach your goal, basically. I mean, it's like, seems very basic, but the fact that you're not going to be working on your English, well, you're going to be closing doors for yourself. And these doors can be, again, on the professional level, but it can also be like on a personal level. Like imagine you're traveling, for, again, it can be business travel, but it can even be, honestly, it can even be traveling for pleasure. You're just traveling, you want to be able to get around, you don't want to hire a guide, to be able to interact with people. And you could eventually say, yeah, well, I'm going to be traveling to non-English speaking country, so do I really need it? Well, unless you're planning to learn the language of that country and you're going to go to that country because you want to practice that specific language, more likely than not, it's going to be English that you're going to need. I mean, a fact, English is an international language, and whether you like it or not, it's a fact. The likelihood you have of meeting someone who speaks English, I think, is probably higher than the likelihood you have of meeting a French-speaking person when you're traveling worldwide. Of course, if you're going to go to Africa, of course, if you're going to go to Quebec, or maybe even traveling in Europe, some countries, in some countries you may meet people who speak French because France, being part of the European Union, it may be a language that is learned in schools in some of the EU countries. But apart from that, I mean, if you're going to go to Asia, if you're going to go to South America even, and you're not, speaking Spanish, there's a probability, like a high probability that you'll meet people who speak English and not speak it perfectly, but well enough to interact with you, be, helpful with you, or even just like, be able to have a conversation and share a moment with people. I mean, if that's what you're looking for. If you're not looking for that, if you're not looking for that human connection when you're traveling and you just want to meet, people who share your culture and people who share your language, of course you're not going to need English, but again, more often than not, you will need English, even at a lower level. And that's why, like, the fact that you may not speak because you're being overly perfectionist is really not doing you service, because the people that you're going to be speaking to are not native speakers themselves. English is just that hyphen, it's just that bridge between yourself and the person in front of you who is not speaking your native language. And if you're not speaking their native language, well, you have to find common ground. So usually English will be that. Another aspect that she mentions, Marina, is that you have to, if you want to make progress, you have to accept constructive feedback with gratitude. And I think this is something that, well, English learners worldwide have difficulty with, but I think that French speakers in particular have an issue with this. Like, just accepting feedback, and because sometimes feedback can be taken as criticism, like in the sense that, oh, you're saying that my English is bad. It means that I'm bad at English. And there's interpretation behind that, because maybe the person is saying your English, I have difficulty understanding you because maybe of your pronunciation, maybe because of the way you're forming your sentences or your phrases. It doesn't make sense. But it's, it's actually okay. And she says, so accept constructive feedback with gratitude, because the key word here is constructive, which means that if somebody is going to tell you that your English is poor because, or I think people may not even be that blunt. So blunt means people aren't going to be that straightforward. People aren't going to be so direct in telling you your English is not good, your English sucks. I think no one is going to tell you that. I mean, unless they want to be mean, or unless they, want to be hurtful, or they're just negative people who are just unhappy in their lives, probably. But I mean, otherwise, someone who is going to tell you, I'm sorry, but I really don't understand what you're saying because I don't understand your pronunciation. Well, you can either say, oh, poor me and my bad English, or you can say, well, how can I do this better? How can I pronounce my words better? And maybe it can even happen if you've been working on your English and trying to improve it for years and years, and you realize that you're, not at the level that you think you are, because you're confronted with speakers who don't understand you. And it's okay, in the sense that at least you've gotten information that helps you move forward. You've gotten information that is telling you you need to do things differently. I mean, you can either be, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this very bluntly again, so in a very direct manner, but you can either be a happy idiot thinking that you know everything and that you master everything, or, and even if it's not true, or you can say, okay, I know some things, possibly there are things that I'm not good at. I'm going to, practice anyway. I'm going to speak anyway. And I'll see what feedback and what impression it makes on other people. Because again, let me remind you that English is a tool, and it's a tool for communication. And if you can't communicate, then you're not using the tool correctly. And if you're not using the tool correctly, it means you need to go back and work on it and improve it so that you can use it correctly. Okay, and when I'm saying use it correctly, again, I'm not saying having perfect accent or even perfect grammar, but I mean, I'm going to take an example, like suppose that you mix up past simple and present perfect, because that's something that we as teachers, we teach that, and we sort of repeat, the importance of the difference, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to not be a teacher for 2 seconds, and I'm going to tell you, you know what? If we understand what you're saying, it doesn't matter. If you say, for example, I was a happy child, and if you say, I have been a happy child, it may not make sense. Like, people are going to say, not sure what you're saying. But if you say, I was a happy child, and I have been a happy child when I was young, so you did not use the present perfect correctly here. You said, I have been, but it's okay. Like, you put context for your listener to understand when you say, I've been a happy child when I was young, because you have specified when I was young. So the person in front of you is going to say, oh, you mean you were a happy child when you were young? Okay, I get it. So we don't say I have been, because usually this is when you talk about something recent or when you talk about an experience, but you can say I was a happy child when I was young. And people are going to be helpful, and people are going to help you. And some people aren't even going to correct you. I mean, some people just don't care. They just want to be able to interact with you. And I think that's the most important thing. And again, I'm not saying this as an English teacher. I'm saying this as a human being. And even if you're like obsessed with the perfect English language communication, I mean, you can get obsessed about getting it right, but don't let that obsession keep you from connecting with other people, right? It's like a lot of things in life. You can be obsessed with finding the perfect partner in life, but you can also say, I'm obsessed with that. I'd love to. But if you use that as an excuse to not go and meet, people with whom you can have experiences and eventually fall in love with, well, then what's the point, right? I mean, what is the point of having an ideal and sort of aiming for perfection if between now and that goal of perfection, you're not living, experiencing, doing things? Okay, moving on. So, because I'm talking a lot as usual, and a lot of points that I want to cover here. The other thing that she talks about, and it has to do with the constructive feedback part, is that people have a fear of being made fun of. So people have a fear that we're going to laugh at their English, or that we're going to be very negative. I mean, so you, my dear listener, may have a fear of speaking because you think people are going to make fun of you. So first of all, let me just say that, again, any decent human being has other things to do than make fun of you. Like, seriously, if you come across someone whose first reaction and first instinct is to make fun of your effort of communicating, get rid of that person. No, I mean, like, honestly, like, is there really a point to get into a debate with people like that? Because if they're projecting that on you, of criticizing you for making an effort, it's already on them, in the sense that it's a reflection of the non-effort that they are making themselves to improve. Because if you value the fact that improvement requires efforts and requires imperfect action, you're not going to go and criticize people who make that effort. And I know it's really hard, and very probably in France in particular, because again, from my experience, and I'm not saying everybody is like that, I'm not going to make a huge, general assumption. I'm just going to say that from my experience, like 90% of the times, people are going to get critical towards themselves, and so critical towards others. Now, if they're critical towards themselves, I say, well, and I've had students like that who are, so critical towards themselves, and so, again, the perfectionist thing, that they don't make progress. Like during the whole time we spend together, they're like looking at themselves in a mirror. This is a metaphor, but looking at themselves in a mirror, looking for the imperfection on their face. It's like a teenager who's just looking at everything that's wrong and not looking at, what's going well. And it's basically the same thing if they're going to be criticizing other people. So, it's almost a reflex, like, I'm just going to be critical and I'm just going to see the negative thing, the negative part of whatever's going on. I mean, I almost think it's like a mindset, unfortunately. And so, okay, let me go down that path. Basically, you need to surround yourself with people who have a positive mindset and who are going to encourage you to express yourself. And if you have a negative mindset for yourself, then yes, I'm sorry to say, you will not only will you not be able to speak, but when I say be able, I mean have the ability to speak, but you're not even going to give yourself permission to speak. It's not that you are unable to speak, it's that you're not giving yourself permission to speak. And that's where the difference is. You could speak, you can speak, but you don't want to speak because basically you're censoring yourself and you're saying, there's a voice inside you saying, don't speak, shut your mouth, don't talk, because it's not going to sound well. So already the negative thinking has to be eliminated from you. And then you have to go and seek out, so you have to go you have to search for people who are encouraging and positive. And when they, try to encourage you and when they want to compliment you, listen to them. Don't reject them. Don't push them away. Don't say no, but I suck, or, if it's like people are giving you a gift, the gift of encouragement, the gift of support, take it, be thankful for it. So show gratitude. And even if they're giving you, feedback that there's something, that needs to be improved, it's also a gift. Say thank you and work on it. But don't listen to those who are just going to be critical and not be specific about what they're criticizing. And don't listen to people who and you see are already very negative about themselves, about life in general, because they're not going to help you. They're not going to pull you to the top and help you reach your goals and your, best self in English. And so something that she says I'm going to back to Marina here and the ideas that she mentioned in her video is that, so you're doing your best because you're making an effort to understand people and talk to people who don't talk your language. So you can pat yourself on the back. You can congratulate yourself on that. And usually, if you have a fear of mockery, it has to do with what you think people will think of you. So there's the real mockery, and then there's this whole, apocalyptic, I'm exaggerating, but, dark movie that you're making in your head about how people will react. So, again, be kind to yourself and don't do that because it's not going to help you speak and improve your English. So then she also gives very, how can I say this? Down to earth, very practical, pragmatic tips about how you can improve and speak better English if you dare to speak. So basically, if you're going to go into specific conversations, and specific conversations are really good to improve your English because you're going to be laser focused on a certain type of vocabulary. Like if you're only going to be speaking about video games, you're going to know a lot about gaming. I don't know. I have no ideas. Okay, that's a bad example because I know nothing about video games. But I don't know. Imagine you're a foodie. You love food. And you're going to be talking about sauces, flavors, aromas, ingredients, how to cook, how matter is transforming. Either it's boiling, it's simmering. You have a wide range of vocabulary around that specific topic, and so specific conversations are really interesting because they help you to develop specific vocabulary, but sort of be a mini expert on a topic. And you can decide that you're going to be in your language learning journey, you can decide that you're going to be a mini expert on one subject this month or for the next 2 months and work only on that. And then you're going to move on to another subject so imagine you were talking about food. You're going to be talking about growing your own fruits and vegetables and anything that has to do with gardening or herbs or that kind of thing. So, and you're going to be focused on only that. So, when you are focusing on specific conversations and you don't have the vocabulary, you can ask the person in front of you to define a word. You can describe it and then ask the person to tell you, okay, it's this, da 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 da. Do you know what this is called in English? And the person will help you. And it's about learning keywords that are going to help you navigate a conversation on a specific topic. And then on top of that, you can add, general English words that you're going to use across any conversation. There are so many things to be said. So moving on, something else that is important when you say, I understand, but I can't speak. It's about, that language is not only verbal communication. Language is also nonverbal. And this is true across any culture and any country. And it's actually culture specific. The way you, the faces that you make when you speak, the way you move your hands, your body language and posture is going to send a different message depending on who is, standing in front of you, what their cultural background is. So a good way to delve, to go into, go into, dive into, these are synonyms. A good way to get inside, another synonym, another person's culture, and it can be, again, native English speaker or non-native English speaker, is to pay attention to facial expressions, to pay attention to body language. Because one, it's going to help you connect what words you use based on how you feel. Like imagine, again, you see someone who is making a sad face and the person is saying, I'm mourning. And you're like, what is mourning? Like morning and night? And she says, I'm mourning. My dog just died. Oh, so she's sad. Her dog just died, and she can't stop crying. Oh, so she's sad about her pet that is dead. So what is that? When you're sad about something that is dead, that's called mourning or grieving. Basically, if you sort of look at the context of what the person is saying and the facial expression that she has, you know that the word mourning is associated with a sad / negative feeling. It has nothing to do with being happy and partying and that kind of thing. So it's going to help you understand in what context you use words, and then you're going to dig deeper and try to understand how to use that word. And then once you've understood it, because again, the topic here is I understand but I can't speak, you can use body language yourself. So basically, you don't have to speak perfectly. You can use, again, your facial expressions, your body language, describe, I lost my dog, I am so sad, my dog it was very sick, he's not here anymore. And people are going to say, oh, so you're mourning. So they're going to, again, help you find the right word. And you can also, as we're talking about body language, and the fact that this is usually culturally specific, you can ask the person if your body language or your facial expressions, or for example, like the way that you are talking with your hands, the gestures that you are making. So gestures are, for example, if you're moving your hands a lot, or even the middle finger up is a gesture. So there's a symbolic behind that. And so basically it's asking, is that offensive? I'm not talking about the middle finger, of course. I'm talking about your body language, and body language is even about beyond like your actual physical body. I mean, it can even be about the way you dress. It can even be about how loud you are. There are some cultures where it's not well seen to be too loud, and it's not about erasing or yourself or not being yourself. It's about just, at least at the beginning, because you're trying to adapt and understand the person you're having a discussion with, it's to adapt the level of your body language and your vocal sounds to what is culturally expected of you when you are considered a stranger. Let's put it that way. So imagine you're a stranger somewhere. You're trying to fit in, you're trying to adapt, but if you're going to come and have a body language or a way that you're dressing or a facial expression that is not going to be very respectful, you need to know, because that's not what you're trying to put out. That's not how you're trying to connect with people. I mean, if you're going to offend people, you're not going to connect with them. So at the beginning, you need to, understand the context and adapt all of that body language part. And once you've been adopted and you can feel, or you've understood that people are attached to you, as a friend or a close friend, then you can, in time, and it's really up to your better judgment. It's for you to judge whether you can relax, let's say, in your body language and be a little bit more yourself. But it's, at the beginning, you need to adjust and adapt before you can become yourself again. Because that's how you create the connection. That's how you show respect to another culture. And you can also say, of course, I'm sorry, I don't speak English very well, especially if you've offended someone. So, especially a native speaker, you can say, I don't speak English very well. If it's a non-native speaker, there's also a possibility that they may not speak English well, and so their body language also is going to be sort of disconnected from what is expected. And so this is really, again, culture talk. It's two people trying to have an understanding of each other's culture independently of whether they speak English or not. So if you're smiling, if you're open, if you show that you have an open attitude towards people, I think that's the best key to open any door. And Marina says this also in her video, is that kindness is an international language. So even if your English is not perfect, kindness is just, everybody understands kindness. So that's always a good way to introduce yourself in any language. So just to wrap up, because I am nearing again a almost 45-minute mark here, 40 minutes of talking. Just to wrap up, basically, you have to use English as something that's going to help you spread your culture. You can see it like that. Again, you understand English, but you think you can't speak it. But how do you connect with people? So you connect with people maybe with something that's familiar to you, and what's familiar to you is talking about your culture. And you can also speak again and use simple words to express yourself. Don't think you need to use complicated language, complicated vocabulary to be understood, appreciated, valued in a conversation. Just the fact that you're making the effort, to understand another person's position and have a conversation about that in a language that is not your language is already incredible and worth, I would say, celebrating, but you can applaud yourself for that. So I'm going to end things here. There's one last thing actually, that because maybe it's relevant with the times that we live in. You can also, if you want to speak and check if you are understandable, is on your smartphones now you have Google Assistant or Siri if you're using an iPhone. If you're going to configure your smartphone in English, you can actually chat with your smartphone assistant in English and see if that person understands you. Now, if that, artificial intelligence, I guess, I think it is, understands you. Now, just one thing to be careful of is that even in French, Siri or Google Assistant may not understand you. I mean, if it's parametered in French and you're speaking French, even in French, sometimes these things don't understand you. So they may not understand you in English. So try to rephrase what you're saying. Like if you're going to say, Siri, so doing it with an English accent or American accent, whatever accent it is that I have. Siri, please find the latest Taylor Swift song on Spotify, only because I'm a Taylor Swift fan. So you could, say that and see if, Siri understands you. You say it in French, say it like, Siri, trouve-moi la dernière chanson de XYZ. And okay, Siri has found your song. And then you switch over to, Siri, tell me about XYZ. And if Siri doesn't understand you when you're speaking English, then you know that you need to improve. And so say it, repeat it, rephrase it in different ways until Siri gets it, because I think it's like if you're going to be, practicing your speaking skills, that's actually a good way to start practicing speaking English and getting a bit more confident about the fact that you are being understood. And to get over that fear, to go beyond that fear, to go around that fear and eliminate it eventually, that you can't speak well, you can't speak correctly, you are not understood. Okay, 46 minutes in, I am going to wrap up, end this episode. If you have listened to me until the end, thank you. If you listened to me up until now, thank you so much for your attention and your ears. I'm not taking it for granted at all. And I will talk to you next week with a shorter version, and it'll be a quick tip, quick win for your English. Take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Vous venez d'écouter The Language of Success, présenté par votre formatrice indépendante dévouée en anglais, Diana. Si le contenu de ce podcast vous a plu, le meilleur moyen d'apporter votre soutien au travail réalisé est de vous y abonner sur votre plateforme d'écoute préférée. Vous pouvez aussi montrer votre appréciation en laissant 5 étoiles sur votre plateforme d'écoute si elle le permet. On se retrouve dans 2 semaines. D'ici là, à toi qui m'écoutes attentivement, sache que tu as tout mon soutien pour ta réussite en anglais.